What? Just kidding. I know you're here because maybe you watch my channel, maybe you've been reading the corrections, and you have since adopted a Chip Lambert level of disdain for consumerism. Well, no worries, I am here to help. It just so happens that spending 3 days straight editing a video that only my close friends and family will watch on topics such as this one brings me great joy. So without further ado, my fine friends and silly girls, sit back and relax because today we have a video on 20 more frugal hacks that will save you money. Let's do it. Okay, so the first tip is kind of general, but it is to just use less of whatever it is that you already use. So for me, a good example is soy sauce. Whenever I'm eating dumplings or sushi, I feel like I dump a ton of soy sauce into the thing and use like 5% of it. So I've been trying lately to dump less in there. Same with toilet paper. I feel like you just, I don't know, grab a ton from the roll and only need like a couple of sheets. So just be conscious of that. This can be taking shorter showers to kind of cut down on the water bill, or making sure you turn the lights off more to cut down your electric bill. But yes, very generally look at what you constantly consume and try to consume less of it. And if you're habitually looking for things like that, it's going to really add up in savings and cutting down the frequency of which you have to replace things. Okay, so I've talked about this before, but always make sure you actually run out of a product before you replace it. This still stands true, but I wanted to piggyback a little bit off of that one this time by saying when you do run out of that product, take a good hard look at it and make sure that it is something that needs to be replaced. So some examples of this, I always used to eat Cheerios and almond milk for breakfast. It was just something I did every day. It was pretty healthy and easy and I didn't have to think about it. But ever since COVID, I don't really eat breakfast anymore. I kind of fast and eat a big lunch and a smaller dinner. But I've been buying Cheerios and almond milk for so long that when I finally ran out, I replaced them and now they are just going stale and going bad in my fridge because I don't really consume those products anymore. Same with makeup. I think I got into the habit of buying highlighter and putting it on my cheekbones, but I really have come to the conclusion that it doesn't really make that much of a difference in terms of how I look. So that's not a product that I want to repurchase. And yet, if you just take your routines at face value, that's not something that you'll ever identify. And you'll continue to repurchase an item that doesn't add value to your life. So definitely part A, make sure that you are exhausting the products that you have before you replace them. But once they are gone, take a good hard look at it. Make sure it actually adds value to your life before you just automatically repurchase it. Okay, next tip, I feel like this is grandparent level advice, but never grocery shop hungry. And I think if you think about it, we can probably all agree that this is true. You go into a store and you are starving and you wind up making a ton of food purchases that you don't necessarily need because you're starving and you want to eat everything, and the grocery store surrounds you with all these affordable options of things you can eat. So make sure when you go into a grocery store, never to do it hungry. Next one, nice and simple. Shopping is not a hobby and it's not something you should do to fill up your time. When you shop, there should be something in mind that you actually need. I would never recommend just wandering into a store and letting it tell you what you need. That is a guaranteed way to wind up with unnecessary purchases. My next tip is to put as much friction as possible between you and shopping in general. And when I talk about putting friction in between you and shopping, think about things like Amazon Prime. Prime has been alarmingly effective in reducing nearly all of the friction that previously shopping would have inflicted upon you. Before Amazon, if you wanted something, you had to commute to a store, you had to physically look at all of the options, you had to interact with the cashier. All of this takes time and comes with a certain degree of inconvenience, all of which might deter consumers from making the purchase in the first place. Amazon has essentially removed this altogether. All of this, coupled with their low prices, makes it almost scary easy to buy things. And in my opinion, this is a bad thing because it totally removes impulse control. There's really no time allotted for the consumer to think about whether or not they need the item. The fact is that the price and the instant gratification that comes along with it are so accessible that most of the time people are just going to press order without even thinking about it. Prime is just an example here. I know that Target and Walmart and pretty much every other big company are trying to do the same thing. So my advice would be to cancel those subscriptions that remove all the friction between you and the purchase. I've said this 100 times before, but one of my favorite ways to install impulse control into your life is to secondhand shop. It puts a ton more effort into locating something that you're on the hunt for, and in the time it takes to find the item secondhand, you've had plenty of time to think about whether it's really worth the effort of bringing the item into your life. So secondhand shopping is not only more affordable and sustainable, but it also pretty much mandates a thinking period where you can decide if what you're searching for is going to actually help you. My next tip is to try to limit your exposure to digital ads. So that can look like unsubscribing from all of your junk emails that prompt you to go shopping because some website you ordered from one time is having a 50% off sale. I've talked before about going into a store and being kind of bombarded with the scarcity mindset. You see 50% off posters, buy now or never get again. It's this false sense of urgency, and the same thing can be achieved by all those emails in your inbox. They're kind of triggering this, oh, I better go get it now or I'll never be able to get it again thing, and that's exactly what they want. So you kind of want to remove those prompts from your life. So I'd recommend right now limiting your exposure to digital ads by going ahead and taking some time to unsubscribe from all of those advertising distribution emails. Pretty similarly, my next tip is to limit your exposure to temptation by spending less time on social media in general. A lot of social media is an ad, but even the things that aren't directly ads kind of are ads. They're ads for a better body, a better closet, a better whatever that you don't have. If you're not consuming that media, then being envious of what other people have isn't really going to be on your mind. So along with unsubscribing with email advertisements, try to limit your time on social media as well, because almost everything you see online is trying to sell you something. The less social media that you have, the less of that narrative you'll be exposed to that you're not good enough and you need to buy more. Next up, I would advise you fill your free time with things that don't necessarily cost money. I think there's this really big myth that whenever you have time off, that time should be spent consuming things and that leisure time has to cost money. And I find that to be totally untrue. I recently made a video about monetizing hobbies that you already enjoy. So mine would be spending time with animals. I get paid to dog walk, and I like to paint as a hobby. So I get paid to paint portraits for other people. My husband similarly loves cocktails, and that can get really expensive if every single weekend you're going out and spending your leisure time buying cocktails. They can go for like $15 a glass. So instead he learned to make them himself, and now it's this amazing hobby that he's found, and it's costing us way less than it would have to go out and pay somebody to entertain us. Kind of a depressing thing I've come to conclude, but you're pretty much gonna spend your time making money or spending money. So try not to spend all of your leisure time on doing all of the work you did during the week to make that money. And better yet, I think the more that you stay busy working, the less subscriptions you need to keep you entertained. So if you're always painting or something like that, that can translate into needing just Netflix instead of Netflix and Hulu. So yeah, the busier you are, the less you're gonna spend. Okay, next tip. If you get a gift card somewhere, try not to treat that as a green light to make some random expenditure. I know this is so fun-sucky, but basically if you got a gift card at Target, which is a store that I don't normally shop at anyway because of the whole impulse control thing, but if you get a gift card to Target, use it to buy something that you already would have bought already, like food or coffee grounds or shampoo, kind of repeat purchases. Use the gift card as a free replacement for a necessity that month and put the rest in savings. This may sound so lame, but I can assure you the long-term financial freedom this is going to contribute to is going to be way more of a gift to yourself than any random item at Target ever will be. Okay, the next one I think everyone probably does anyway, but in case you don't, if you go to a hotel or anything like that, make sure you take advantage of all the free stuff. There's a ton of coffee grounds and tea and shampoo, conditioner, soaps that you can take. I think I seriously will not have to buy soap for the next 10 years because of the bar soap that I've accumulated from living in hotel rooms. It's actually a really great perk as long as you're using it instead of hoarding it, and I mentioned that a little bit last time. Okay, so the next thing for people that have credit cards, most credit cards have some kind of reward system and maybe some perks they'll offer semi-annually or monthly, so take some time now to go ahead and do some research on what those perks are. Then set reminders in your phone to make sure you are using those benefits every single month. So we have American Express. It offers $50 free to Saks Fifth Avenue. So I make sure I set that reminder in my phone, and every 6 months I use that gift card like we talked about, and I buy things I couldn't get secondhand but that I will make repeat purchases of. So just now I'm running low on mascara, so I used my credit card 6-month benefit to get myself some brow pencils and mascara for free. It also offers free Uber Eats every month, so I get basically a free meal, and every month I try to make sure that I'm utilizing that because that's otherwise kind of a wasted opportunity to eat for free that one day. So yeah, just really make sure that you are taking advantage of your credit card system's benefits to the max. On a similar note to the credit card thing, take purchases that you are already going to make anyway and charge them to your credit card so you can accumulate as many points as possible. And over time, this is going to add up to things like discounted flights or even free flights, free hotel rooms, on top of just the free benefits that your card might offer. Go ahead and rack up as many points as possible, spending only what you would have already spent anyway. Hang on, let's like roll up my sleeves. I think it looked cuter that way. My next tip is to avoid buying items that only serve one niche purpose. This can extend to all types of items. Food even, you wouldn't want to buy something that only goes in one recipe. Clothing, you want to buy neutral items that can go across all seasons, all occasions. If you're interested, I have a video about that I will link above. Makeup is a really good example as well. I recently got a palette of bronzers from a Buy Nothing Facebook group that can serve as not only bronzer, but also highlighter and eyeshadow. Basically, the more items that you buy that don't just serve one niche purpose, the more bang you're gonna get for your buck. My next one's pertaining to gift giving, and I know the holidays will be here before we know it, and I plan to make a frugal holiday hacks video very soon. Try to wrap the gifts that you get for people with materials that you already have. This is a lot more sustainable than buying new wrapping paper, and also the cost of buying gift bags and tissue paper and a bow and a card to go along with it could add up to be a lot more than what it would have been to just wrap the gift and make your own card at home. Not to mention the latter way is much better for the environment. Next one is a quick one, but when you have recurring payments on things like insurance, if it's at all feasible for you, try to pay the balance of that insurance in full rather than in separate installments, because a lot of the time, if you add up what those separate installments would be, that sum turns out to be greater than what it would have been if you've just been able to pay it all at once. So do your best to make payments on stuff like insurance in just one installment rather than small increments. The next one is kind of a general one, but saving money does require a lot of planning ahead. So I'm talking about stuff like make sure you meal prep, or make sure you establish a carpooling ride home before you go out for the night so you don't have to randomly pay for an Uber. Basically, just take some time to plan ahead so that you don't get stuck paying for your lack of foresight, because it does really add up. I've mentioned before the importance of having a budget before you go out to clothing stores, but I also think it's super important to have a budget before you kind of go out anywhere. You go to a restaurant, you kind of want to say, okay, I'm going to spend $50 tops tonight on my entree and drinks or whatever. Or if you go to a bar, try to establish some number that makes sense for you. You don't want to put yourself in this position inebriated with a credit card, which is essentially like writing a blank check while drunk. Not to mention when you wake up the next day to a bill that you didn't plan on, that kind of takes away all the fun of the night. So it might sound boring and annoying to do that now, but you're going to have so much more fun in the long run if you do this, I promise. Last few miscellaneous points. Try to hang dry clothing rather than putting it into the washing machine. This is not only going to cut down on your electric bill, but it is also going to make the actual life of the clothes longer. The whole washer dryer cycle is really hard on the clothing and breaks it down a lot faster and makes it much less durable. So hang dry clothing whenever you can to stretch its life out a little bit longer. I saved this next tip as next to last because I didn't want to scare away any guys that might be watching this video, but ladies, most of us are probably still having our periods. Periods can get really expensive, what with the purchasing of the products that go along with them, be it pads, tampons, whatever is your preference. I highly recommend investing in a reusable period product, whether that be underwear or my personal choice, which is a menstrual cup. It's going to cost you about $40 up front, and then as long as you maintain its cleanliness, you can pretty much keep using that as long as you want, and you never have to buy tampons ever again. Personally, have not bought tampons in 2 years, and I'm sure that will save anybody a considerable amount of money over time. Bleeding out of your crotch every month already sucks. Don't make it suck more by making it more expensive than it has to be. All right, and we have reached the last tip. My last tip is to downsize wherever you can. A lot of what I've mentioned previously is kind of small fry, cutting down little things here and there, but what's really gonna save you the most money is looking at your big expenses like your car or your rent, taking a look at those lines of expenses and seeing if there's any possible way that they can be reduced. This could mean downgrading your vehicle for something that is maybe a little less flashy but much more reliable and something that you can buy outright. It can mean moving to an apartment that has rent that's hundreds lower. Either way, just take a good hard look at your lifestyle, identify the most costly recurring payments, and then do everything in your power to get those down as low as humanly possible within a standard of living that you're willing to accept, of course. Again, I know this is general, but this is going to vary according to everybody. And I also think it's very important to know what is and isn't a necessity. See what luxuries you can live without, and you will be amazed with the hundreds of dollars that come pouring back into your bank account every month. And that's all I have. Those are 20 more of my frugal tips. If you guys like this video, please consider liking and subscribing. I make new videos about general lifestyle content regarding minimalism, frugality, and travel every Wednesday or Thursday, depending on your time zone. Thank you as always for listening to my soapbox, and I will see you guys next week. Bye. Woo! Rolling up my sleeves. Now I have no idea where my goddamn bookmark is.